So, Mr. Bennett, obviously to start, could you state your name, your title, and how to spell your name?
Sure. David Bennett, David Bennett, and I'm the chairman of the Board of Commissioners for Bulloch County.
Awesome, thank you so much, sir. So moving forward, we're getting up into election season. As we continue to preview the November 4th general election, there's a ballot measure that people will get a chance to vote on called FLOST, or the Floating Local Option Sales Tax. For someone who has no clue what this is, or maybe have never heard the term, how would you explain it?
Well, this is it's a new sales tax that was implemented as a part of House Bill 581, which the state passed last year. The first part of that afforded counties the opportunity to do a floating homestead exemption, which we enacted here last March. And what that does is it freezes people's property tax assessment based off of the 2024 rate. So even though like in this year in Bulloch County, most people saw an increase in their assessment on their property, if it was put into a homestead exemption, their taxes for this year are based off of that 2024 rate. And then what will happen in the future is the 1st of January, the state will come out through the Department of Revenue and issue a consumer price index. And the most that your property tax assessment can go up is based off of that consumer price index. So if the state says the CPI goes up by 3%, that's the most that your property tax assessment can be is increased is by 3%. So the other half of that was the House Bill 581 allows counties to implement a local option sales tax. We're calling it a FLOST. And what that does is by law, it's a 1-cent sales tax that can only be used to offset property taxes. And we're very fortunate in Bulloch County that sales taxes generate a pretty nice sum of revenue for us. 2024 is the latest year that we've got full data for. A sales tax at 1 cent generated $19.4 million here. So if that was the case, what will happen is we will look at our entire tax digest, and if it's $100 million, they're going to subtract $19.4 million from that to offset people's property taxes. So really what it does is it allows the county to offset the local population, the property owners' property taxes, and spread that tax across the county, for folks that, that come to Bulloch County every day to shop, spend money, and do business. We also have a very large population here of about 26,000 GSU students that use a lot of county services, whether it's fire, EMS, law enforcement, driving on the roads, that they'll put some skin in the game through a sales tax as far as funding the operations of the county.
Absolutely, and you kind of hit it on there, but just for clarification for someone, for the sound bites, this tax, if approved, the goal of it is to reduce property taxes, not to fund specific projects, maybe like an East FLOST is.
That is correct, and I want to be very clear with that, is the only thing that the FLOST can be used for is to offset property taxes. This isn't something where the county can come down the road and say, we want to use it to build a park or to buy a new vehicle or something like that. The only thing that can be done with this money is offset property taxes. So it really is every dollar that is collected through the sales tax is a dollar that people will see their property taxes decrease by.
Absolutely, and obviously, especially when it comes to taxes, people get very weary of that word. So some people might not love the idea of an extra cent added in the sales version. What would be your statement to those people about why you think it may need to pass, or maybe it doesn't pass, your opinion on it?
Well, I'm very hesitant as an elected official here to get up and campaign for or against a property tax or for the FLOST. However, what I will tell folks is that, people don't like property taxes. And I personally ran on the idea of lowering property taxes. I don't like property taxes. I think they're very regressive. I don't like the idea that you buy a piece of property and 10 years later the state comes and even though they have a very fair process as how they assess that property, you don't really see any increase in revenue just by owning that piece of property. It's just where you live and that's it. And as that property tax goes up, we have so many people in Bulloch County right now that are saying that they can't afford to pay their property taxes, and they're having to make choices between having and having not, as far as just everyday things. This is a great way for us to offset that property tax, and where you have that property tax burden on just property owners. This spreads this across everyone that uses services in the county. It is in my mind, a much fairer tax and a much fairer way to generate the revenue that we need to operate the services that the county must provide by law.
Absolutely. That kind of wraps up, my pre-planned questions, but is there anything about the FLOST that, you'd like to expand on, or maybe you want to make the public aware, just kind of giving you that opportunity here?
So, running the numbers that we have based off of a sales tax that generates $19.4 million in 2024, the average appraised value of a piece of property in Bulloch County right now is $350,000. So at that price and using the 2024 figures for sales tax to generate, we're looking at folks will see about a 39% decrease in their property taxes. That equates to about $600 in savings, a little bit over that actually. And when people say, well, I'm still having to spend money on a sales tax, the thing is though with that, to make that $600 from a 1 cent sales tax, you would have to spend $60,000. And most people in this county are not going to spend $60,000 through the year unless they're going out and buying big ticket items like a new car or something like that. So this really is a way to not just offset your property taxes, but really spread that out amongst everyone and reduce the taxes that everybody pays.